Everyone, and welcome. It's really wonderful to see so many colleagues joining us today for this conversation on building a coaching culture in higher education. Today's webinar explores a question that many of us are increasingly asking ourselves and our institution. What does it really take to embed coaching meaningfully across the community, either within a school, department, or across the whole institution? And I'm so delighted that we will be able to hear today from the colleagues from University Edinburgh Business School today. And the Coaching Culture Steering Group there, who will share their ongoing journey of developing and sustaining coaching practices over the past 12 years. I have to say, I've met colleagues from Edinburgh Business School probably at the beginning of this network and been asking for a session like this because I was really amazed about the work that they're doing over there and how humble they are as well to say, but we are still figuring things out, which you will hear about, of course. But I really think there's a lot to learn from 12 years of journey that they've been on. So I'm not going to introduce everyone individually because they will be introducing themselves, but you can see their names on the screen. So please join me in welcoming Rona, Amanda, Lucy, Pauline, and Rebecca today. Over to you guys.
Oh, okay. Thank you and good afternoon, everyone. And Yelena, a big thank you again for this kind invitation to come and speak today. As you said, you've asked us a few times and it's took us a while to actually come on, but we're here. But we decided to do this as a whole coaching culture steering group. We haven't really told our story in this way before and to such a big audience. So it is a first, so bear with us. But thank you really for having us do this session. It's a great opportunity. So before I start, I really just wanted to introduce everyone, let you know who we actually have on our steering group and who's going to be presenting today. So I'm going to start, give a little bit of context. I don't know if someone's got their mic on. That's okay, I'll just keep going. So just a quick introduction for myself. So I'm Rona and I'm head of coaching at the University of Edinburgh Business School. So at the school, I provide executive coaching across our MBA cohort, but I also work collaboratively to strategically lead on the growth and the development of the coaching culture at the school. And just a little bit more context, before joining the school in higher education back in 2014, I spent about 20 years working in financial services and a range of different leadership and learning and development roles. But that's where I first started to coach and qualified as a coach was back in 2005. That's very much me. Amanda.
Hi there, everyone. Pauline and I've had some technical issues, so I'm joining Pauline in her room, so hopefully this works okay. Yes, thanks for this opportunity. I'm Amanda Singleton. I'm the Deputy Director of MBA Programmes here in the Business School. And a bit like Rona, I've been here for a long time. So joined the Business School in 2013. Also from an industry background, so I had worked in recruitment, leadership and talent development for a number of years, and joined the business school initially in careers and have moved, my roles evolved significantly in that time. So primarily I'm responsible for leading on the professional development and coaching aspects of our full-time MBA and online MBA programmes. And Lucy?
Hi everybody, welcome along to the session. Thank you very much for inviting us. I'm Lucy Stokes, I'm head of the student development team in the business school. I coach on the MSc programmes, but also for the MBAs and do some supervision for the undergraduate coaching space as well. So I've been in the business school for about 2 years, having come from a different school within the University of Edinburgh that was very much embracing coaching and starting to build this coaching culture. So for me, it was wonderful to come into a school where this was so established, and you'll hear more today about that journey and how it has evolved and changed as the offerings have developed. But yeah, great to come into a school where this is so heavily embraced and really kind of understood and embedded within the curriculum and the different learning experiences for the students. I'll hand over to Pauline now.
Hi everyone, great to be with you today. So my name is Pauline Ferguson. I'm an academic here in the school and I have the role of Deputy Director of Teaching and Partnerships. I'm a qualified coach and have been for the last 5 years. I also do a lot of coaching on the Global Award for Employability at the MSc level within the school. And for the past year, I've been an academic representative on our coaching culture steering group. So I'll pass over to Rebecca. Lovely to be here.
Thanks, Pauline. So my name is Rebecca Gallagher. I'm the Professional Development Coordinator within our Student Development team here at the Business School. I'm heavily involved in the coaching culture and mostly within helping to roll out our portfolio of mentoring programs here at the Business School. And I run our flagship mentoring program. I'm qualified and professional certificate of coordinating mentoring projects, and I come at this with a unique perspective. Having joined the team around 3 years ago, I'm also alumni of the Business School, so I've experienced our coaching culture not only as staff but as student as well. So that is my role. I'm also on part of this call playing a dual role, so I'll be manning our slides and monitoring the chat box along with Jelena. So with that being said, a little bit of housekeeping, as Jelena has already covered most of, but if you can, please have your camera on. It's always lovely to see faces on these online calls, and please do keep your microphone off. I think Jelena is going to put in that function where you can have your microphone on, but we'll leave that to the end. So put any questions that come up into the chat box throughout, and then we'll have a Q&A discussion at the end where we might invite you to come off of mute and have a discussion with us. We'll address those questions, and we have some different touch points throughout to make use of that chat box function. But it's really nice to meet you all, and what I'll do is I'll pass back to Rona now to really kick off the session and dive in.
Okay, well, thank you everyone. So this is our steering group that we work with so closely at the Business School, and you'll be hearing our voices throughout the session, very much a collaborative effort, which is very much how the coaching culture has evolved. But at this point, let me just do a little bit of positioning for today's session. And I think for me, it's just highlighting that we're very aware that coaching culture can mean very different things to different people, and that it will show up differently across different institutions and also different contexts. So just to be clear, today's not about us presenting a perfect model, and it's definitely not the finished blueprint. But what we do want to share is just our ongoing journey at the University of Edinburgh Business School, because what we've had really is 12 years of experimenting with and embedding and continuously learning and improving our coaching and mentoring practices. And it's primarily been across student experience and also into leadership, but also more laterally with staff development, and also really much more recently with our wider community, but we'll bring that alive later on. So we are actually really approaching this afternoon very much from a practitioner perspective. There's just so much to put into a short period of time. So the session is really intended as a live case study. So we're going to be sharing just what we've tried out and what we've developed over the years. We'll share with you some of the things that have worked really well, some of the things that didn't go quite as expected, but also we'll be touching on some of the things that we're still figuring out. As Jelena said earlier on, I keep mentioning to her, we're not there. There's still so much more to do. So our hope though today is really twofold. I think the first is that we hope that there may be something in this session that might help others on their journey. But equally important, we hope too that we can also learn from others in the room, to hear from different perspectives and also from different experiences. So really over the next hour, we're going to spend some time exploring what we mean by a coaching culture at the Business School. And we're going to really bring alive just our experiences. So we're going to start a wee bit, well, not start with, because it's woven all the way through, but we will really focus on our why. Why did this work become important in this context? So you'll hear some of our motivations, our intentions that have really helped shape the journey. But we're also going to talk about the what. What are the practical steps and initiatives that we've taken over that time? How have we managed to bring coaching and that coaching culture to life? And as I said earlier on, we're going to talk about some of our key learnings and reflections so far. And you're going to hear from a couple of examples from our colleagues about just different aspects of what we do in the school, because we can't cover everything, but we're going to do a couple of deeper dives, so case studies within case studies. And then I can't reinforce enough, we do want to invite your stories, your reflections and your ideas. So we really want you to contribute. There'll be touch points, as Rebecca said, throughout the session, but predominantly at the end when we really want to open up for a discussion, questions, answers. So hopefully that helps shape what today is going to look like. But now I'm going to pass over to Pauline to talk a little bit about coaching cultures and what it means to us. So Pauline, over to you.
Thanks, Rona. Yep, so just as Rona was sort of emphasising there, this is not an academic presentation, it's a practitioner presentation, but we thought it was valuable to offer you a couple of definitions here from the literature, just to reinforce what others have said about coaching culture over the years. So I'll just let you reflect on those to start off. Okay, so as part of this then, we really wanted to reflect on, we don't have a blueprint, as Rona was rightly saying. And for us, the coaching culture at University of Edinburgh Business School has very much been one of organic growth. But I suppose we wanted to sort of position, what does it mean to us? And central to this, as well as bringing mentoring and as well as coaching, central to this and our engagement with staff, students and the wider community is a central importance of relationships and the importance of relationships and connection that we leverage through the power of coaching. So we'll see that through a number of the examples and activities of coaching that we touch on across the presentation today. So we really want to invite you, actually, we've got a question on the next slide, to just ask you to share your thoughts in the chat here. How embedded would you say a coaching culture is within your institution? So we really want to get a sense of the experience as you have in the room here in terms of your coaching culture. Rebecca's going to have a look in the chat and observe certain points and bring those out in the chat. And after that, I'll pass over to you, Rona, to take us through the timeline of that evolution of the coaching culture.
Thanks, Pauline. I'm sure everyone's taken a moment to kind of ponder that question, but hopefully it gives you a little bit of reflection on your own standing with coaching at the moment in your own institution. And it might be your own personal opinion there. It might be something that you've discussed at length before, or maybe your early stages of it. But I'll allow everyone a few seconds to maybe put some thoughts into the chat there. As Pauline and Rona have alluded to as well, we're very much at that kind of point where we're still learning, we're still developing, we're always looking to continuously improve. So I can see that Mary's popped into the chat. They're using the term coaching, but it's used interchangeably with understand to be mentoring. Yes, we'll definitely be covering mentoring later on and throughout as part of our coaching culture. We see that definitely they're intertwined for us as well. Thanks, Tracy. So looking at it from that a coach perspective, being a manager, it's not directly, specifically the approach that's taken, but it comes through. It's great to see more and more thoughts coming through. Some mentoring, otherwise not much. I think a lot of coaching, it's almost a bridge to it, with mentorship being that bridge to coaching. Coaching apprenticeship, fantastic. Okay, great. So please do keep having a think about how you've embedded it so far, and keep sharing that in the chat. But I'll pass on to Rona now, as well as a few more of our colleagues who will cover a little bit about how we've embedded it over time with a quick timeline of our coaching culture at the business school. You're on mute there, Rona. There we go.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. And just one statement here. This slide might look quite overwhelming, and don't worry, we're not going to talk through it all. But this was an exercise that we went through. As I said, this was a first for us to try and map our journey. So we tried this timeline. So what we've done is we've kind of mapped key milestones along the way under 3 key kind of areas, under our engagement with staff and students, the actual coaching resource itself, and then finally the journey that we went on with quality, strategy and governance. So what we're going to do is just touch on a few points just so you can get a sense of how things have evolved over the last 12 years. And then as we get further into the presentation, we'll help bring it alive more and share some of the learnings and experiences. So Amanda, you're going to kick us off here with the engagement piece first.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Rona. So as I mentioned, I first landed in the business school, and it is worth just reiterating the fact that we are speaking very much from a business school context here rather than an institutional-wide project or coaching culture. So I landed here in 2013. I originally came in with a remit to be the careers manager for the MBAs. And I guess very quickly what struck me was the fact that in talking to our MBAs about their career strategy, their employability plans, before we got to the stage of actually good CVs and good strategies, what struck me was the fact that there was actually really quite a gap in self-awareness with the students. And many of them were having real difficulties in how to articulate their value and actually talk to their strengths and development areas in a way that they could brand and position to future employers. So it felt like there was a real need to take a step back and to encourage our students to build their own self-awareness, deepen their understanding of who they were, what they had to offer. And coaching seemed very much like the right link and step to take in supporting them with that. So we started very much from a point of view on the MBA programme and introducing coaching at that time. So that's when coaching was kind of born, if you like, within the business school into 2014. And very soon after, the master's programme started to come on board at that point as well. Over the years, as you'll see here depicted in that top line, our coaching offer has evolved significantly, and it has extended across the wider population of students within the business schools. So we're now, we have progressively introduced coaching across undergraduates, masters, our PGR area, and most recently into PhD. But the thing that's worth saying here is that our coaching offer has evolved during that time. So it looks different in different parts of the business school. And that's been the kind of momentum that we've picked up because we've learned from what we've been doing with different groups and we've looked at what works best. So for example, the MBA offering, which I'm going to talk about in a wee bit more detail later, is very much still and always has been one-to-one support for the MBAs. But we've also experimented with group coaching, peer-to-peer, coaching leaders and so on. And I think Lucy's going to bring to life some other models that we've looked at. The evolution across the top line is looking at our student community. In more recent years, so over the last couple of years, that's extended more broadly into staff, looking at coaching support for staff. Now, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, we are talking from a business school perspective here. So when we talk about staff training, there is a coaching offer available at university level, which all staff have been able to take advantage of, and indeed that's still the case. But we've started to look much more closely in the last couple of years at how we support our staff coaching, and we can talk to that a little bit later. But I think, Rona, you're going to, or Lucy, you're going to take us through the next line with coaching resource.
Thanks, Amanda. Yes, I'm going to look at coaching resource, the line through the middle here. And really what you can see that the sort of the general theme that comes out here is that move from external into more investment in the internal capacities within the school. But you can see that we start out in 2014 with a real mix of internal and external coaches. And we've retained that hybrid approach the whole way through, even as we move towards more internal capacity. So 2017, we were very, very heavily reliant on external resources for CPD and supervision. But what you can see here is that 2019 starts to mark that change point when we begin to invest more in the resources that we have within the school, invest more in some of the training programs to enable us to utilize the staff and the students who are engaged in this coaching and mentoring space, and also to start linking out with our alumni who are keen to come back into the business school and to embrace that sense of giving back. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, as will Rebecca, when we talk about the mentoring programs. But it really is in 2023 that you can see that investment piece starting to come through with our first member of staff. So Rona, who's also presenting today, was our first internally trained supervisor. And then also the launch of internal CPD and skills training for supervisors, or sorry, for coaches within the school. And again, it then starts to ramp up more investment in training staff in that internal supervision piece, and also looking at the way that we train our own students to embrace those coaching skills as they start to move out into the world of employment. And again, we've retained that hybrid approach because it gives us that resilience. So we are continually striving towards more internal capacity, but we recognize that being able to call on that external space is really essential for us as we navigate this changing landscape. And so at the moment, our coaching pool looks to be around 22 internal coaches and 12 external. And we try and retain that mix so that we can essentially navigate any of the resourcing challenges that we face as we continue to evolve as a coaching culture, and we continue to evolve and bring in more offerings within the school. I'll pass over now to Rona, who's going to talk about quality, strategy and governance.
Okay, thanks, Lucy. Now, this final strand here, right at the bottom of my screen here, now we've deliberately worded this section as quality, strategy and governance because in reality, that's really how our focus actually evolved. So I think it's fair to say that very early on in the journey, but really formalised in about 2016, we started to have a real focus on measurement and also KPIs. So we have got a lot of historical data, which has helped us enormously. But again, Pauline will come and talk about impact later on. But another big key milestone for us in our journey here was the AC accreditation for our coaches. Now that was an opportunity really to start focusing on reflective practice, ethical practice, and it also gave us, there was something here about credibility as well. It's not our coaching's not regulated, so being able to go through the qualifications, but also to make sure our staff have got the AC accreditation, which also requires a real commitment to CPD and ongoing supervision. That was definitely another big step forward for us. The other milestone I wanted to bring to life was in 2020, because that's when there was a few of us presented to our International Advisory Board and Senior Management Team. So this was us presenting really some of the key data, findings, testimonials, impact statements from our own experience, from students, but also from employers. And as part of that presentation, I have to say we also presented our recommendations on key objectives and deliverables that we'd link to our very first coaching strategy. So it was in 2020 that we really actually started to broach that area of developing an actual coaching strategy together with a 3-year operational plan. And I think that was really in 2020 was the very first time, so that was 6 years since we started to coach, that we started to talk about actually wanting to grow and develop a coaching culture. So there, quite a lot of our ambitions were set. I also wanted to just highlight the impact reporting. Again, Yelena, this goes back to what you were saying at the beginning. We're not particularly good at shouting out about what we're achieving. So in 2023, we started to actually do, and again, only internal, but we do our internal kind of coaching culture summary impact report. And that has been a really good exercise because it's a way to share internally not just what we're doing, because that's not the focus, it's the impact of what we're doing. It's our so what has changed as a result of all the activity that's going on within the school. So that has proved to be a really big step forward. And then again, another big milestone was in 2024, and that was formalising our approach to governance and infrastructure. That was a big leap. I mean, that was for us a time where coaching became really fully embedded in the school's mission, vision, values. And it also kind of coincided with the arrival of our new dean, Gavin, who'll be speaking at the Coaching and HE Network conference in June. So he'll also be sharing some of his experiences. But it was also the time where we set up this coaching culture steering group. And as you've heard from the attendees there, it's a mix between professional services staff, academic staff, and we've also got an executive sponsor who was and continues to be Gavin, our dean. And that's also how my role fell out of this one as well. So, and at the end there in 2026, you see that we start to talk a little bit about our coaching for good from a community perspective, but we're going to talk about that separately later on. So I'm hoping that that looks a bit daunting when you see it that way, but that just gives you an idea really of how we have evolved over the last 12 years. And we've tried to bring to life some of the key milestones. Now, the next slide is really just picking up on something that Amanda said, and I'm just going to cover this quickly. Again, it's all about this evolution. So as we've developed our offering for each of our student cohorts, and this is purely for students here. So I mean, at the moment, you'll see that last year alone, I think we had just under 800 students either engaging one-to-one, group coaching, mentoring. But what you can see here on the left-hand side is the actual student cohort. And then in the middle, you can see the type of offering that we have. And this was key to sustainability. We couldn't offer everyone one-to-one coaching, but equally, it wasn't always the right thing. So peer group coaching, for example, that you'll hear in a while for our second year students, was much more relevant, and mentoring as people transition out into the workplace. The only other two things that I wanted to highlight were in some of our practices for the MBAs, for example, we also incorporate tools such as the EQI 2.0, and again, an emotional intelligence tool, which Amanda will be talking about. And again, I think someone's going to drop the link into the chat here. And also with our MSCs online, as well as that coaching, we also do use strengths profiles. And again, it's a Capfinity Strengths Finder, which I know a lot of you use, but we incorporate that into the offering as well. So I think that's really all I wanted to highlight, tailored to different cohorts of students, and it has evolved over the years. Now, to really help bring it alive, I think this next point is all about bringing it alive and going to our case studies within case studies. So Amanda is going to bring alive from the MBA experience. Okay, Amanda.
Yeah, great. Okay, just maybe a bit of framing just in terms of the MBA, because I'm conscious we're not all from business schools on the call. This is very much a pan-university audience. So our MBA programme, we have two in the business school. Our full-time programme, which is a 1-year intensive programme, targeting typically students who on average in our university have about 8 years management experience and are looking to pivot in their career. That's typically why people would come in the MBA. Our cohort is hugely international. So this year we have 62 students, we have 22 different nationalities. So that's the kind of audience, just to kind of frame that. So they are already fairly senior leaders, many of whom may have experienced some form of coaching and mentoring in their professional careers before joining the MBA. I just give you that as context because it helped us to think about how we tailor the offering for our MBA students. So this really, the MBA is a journey to global employability. That's how we look at the MBA, and those kind of three components that you see here are very important. It's very much an applied degree programme. So yes, there's the MBA academic journey, which of course is hugely important and what the students come here for, but equally we see the career journey playing directly into that, and then importantly the professional development and coaching journey, which is where our discussion here comes in. So I mentioned before that I am the course organiser for our professional development, or as we abbreviate to PD course, which is embedded within our core curriculum for the MBA students. And as of 2019, I mentioned we launched coaching in 2014, but as of 2019, coaching has actually been part of our 4-credit course. So the students study with us 180 credits, 10 credits of that sits within professional development, and coaching is a foundational part of their professional development. So the students each on the full-time programme have 3 coaching sessions, which they have one-to-one with a designated coach, either one of our internal coaching bank or, as Lucy mentioned, one of our external associates. And we've actually had a pool of external associates that we've worked with from way back in 2014. So they're really an extension of our MBA faculty, if you like, coaching faculty. And they will have 3 sessions across the course of their full-time 1-year programme. And it kicks off with the use of the emotional intelligence tool. And we introduced that from quite an early stage because we believe, and I know that Rebecca's dropped the link into the chat, we believe that this is a really good foundation for coaching because it enables our students to look at all aspects of their emotional intelligence, starting really with that foundational piece of self-awareness building. It's worth mentioning that we kind of mark our MBA on 3 strategic pillars: strategic leadership, professional development, which includes coaching, and also the kind of the boutique nature, the kind of personalised approach that we take on the MBA programme. So, you know, a relatively small cohort size, which does enable us really to have that relational and connection piece that Pauline was speaking to before. So, coaching is a really important part of our programme within the full-time. And you'll see just at the bottom there, kind of underpinning all of that is our school values, which we'll talk to as part of our kind of mission and values later: ambition, curiosity, integrity, collaboration and kindness. And those are values that we very much bring through in our coaching with our students. Rebecca, could you mind just moving to the next slide? Thank you. So not too much different here, other than to say that in 2023, we launched our first online MBA programme, and we were very, very clear that we wanted our coaching offer to be part of the online programme, which is actually quite unusual in an online space. But it was really important for us because of the kind of global distribution that we had this connection with our online students. And again, they have professional development embedded in the core curriculum as a credit-bearing part of their programme. So the profile of our students there is slightly different. Again, they have about 11 years plus management experience, but this is a part-time programme that takes place over either 24 or 30 months, depending on the student's choice. So these are part-time working professionals. So I guess the difference that we've seen here is that makes quite a difference in terms of the coaching experience is that our students have access to the coaching, but they're actually able to contextualise that very much in the context of their leadership careers, because the majority of them, they'll have typically, as I say, 11 years plus management experience. So they're actually bringing into coaching experiences, situations that they're dealing with day to day, and hopefully taking the encouragement from that back into their workplace. So again, we use EQ as a core coaching tool here. We do use other tools, strengths, Capfinity strengths that Rebecca again has popped into the chat. We use Belbin, we use the Thomas Kilman instrument for conflict management. I'm sure many of you are familiar with some of those, but they're all part of the professional development and coaching space. And importantly, our students within coaching are setting objectives, personal development objectives, that they then reflect on in written assignment form towards the end of their course with us. Okay, if you could just click on, thanks. So the most recent, I guess, extension of the coaching journey on the MBA programmes has been that as of last year, Rona and I were really keen to start to think about how we equip our outgoing MBA students with coaching skills for leaders, which we know from a wealth of published research are now key leadership skills. And we've mentioned on this slide, it references Carrington Crisp research. There's a lot of research here to support the fact that coaching skills are now really high priority in terms of leadership capability. And we wanted to make sure that our students who were transitioning from kind of coachee, having been recipients of coaching, were able to kind of harness some of the key skills from coaching and take that back into their own leadership roles. So we launched an optional, as it says here, 2-part course. So Rona and I working last year with the full-timers for the first time, and then this year again with the full-timers, but introducing to our online students the opportunity to actually take up that chance to participate in coaching skills for leaders. I just noticed here we've still got an XX in there. I think we had 32 full-time students signed up and around 18 for our online, so quite a healthy level of interest, not mandatory but optional, but that shows that there was a good appetite for coming to learn about core skills development. So not about making them accredited coaches, not anything like that, but giving them, equipping them with the skills around listening, asking purposeful questions, and importantly, being able to spot coachable moments in their own leadership careers. And we've actually accredited that with a LinkedIn digital badge, a letter of CPD award. So there's some value that the students see and are able to work with straight away. But I think that's, unless Rona's got anything to add, I think that was everything that I wanted to say on the MBA front. But just a summary, so really it's about making personalised coaching part of the career strategy for our MBAs, and very much our decision was to embed this within the core curriculum because we really saw it as being as important as a lot of the other academic subjects that were happening. So alongside finance and strategy and economics and everything else, we wanted to give professional development its place and its recognition. And as part of that, we have integrated several tools, as I mentioned. Probably our core tool, I would say, is our emotional intelligence tool. And that really is the foundational piece for helping to build that confidence, self-regard and self-awareness. It is linked to their assignment objectives, so there's a very tangible outcome for the coaching. And as coaches, we're obviously there to support and encourage and guide the students through that kind of personalised journey that they have. What are we still figuring out? Well, things like we'd love to have the core coaching skills for leaders embedded as mandatory part of the timetable. We're negotiating heavily on that one, but we haven't quite got there yet, so it's still optional. We'd love to see that transitioning perhaps in the next couple of academic years. And I guess our biggest challenge that we've experienced in the MBA programmes is that we've found it more difficult to get the same level of engagement in coaching with our online students. With our full-time, they're here, they're in person, they're very much engaged in all of their sessions. With the online, we've got 3 years experience of trying to really embed that. And I think we're still figuring that one out because we do find the levels of engagement are not as high as they are for in-person students. Okay. Rona, anything to add? I'd be happy to move on to Lucy. Oh, you're on mute, Rona.
Amanda, I think that's all the key points. I think when we get into the discussion and the Q&A, we can respond to what people want to hear more about. But I thought, yeah, excellent overview. Thank you.
Over to you then, Lucy.
Great, thank you very much. So I'm going to talk today about the undergraduate and the MSc experience, and I'm talking from from the student development perspective. So the team that I lead is very much focused on supporting students with personal development, professional development, and it all leads into building up that employability piece. Building up employability for students. So you'll see woven through the narrative here, it's very much based on how do we help them to build employability and how do we use coaching and mentoring as a tool to support them on that development journey. So I'll talk about these 4 key areas. So what did we set out to do? What did we do? What have we learned? And what are we still figuring out? Because as everybody has said, this is still an evolving journey. There's lots of great things still out there for us to discover and embed and learn from. So for us, the journey really starts in 2014. And this is when we began to identify this need for students to develop much stronger personal skills, professional skills as part of their degree. So academic excellence has been, continues to be, always will be central to what we do. But there was this real recognition that success in this global workplace, we're a very international business school, success in this global workplace depends not only on academic knowledge, but also these broader transferable skills. So things like self-awareness, communication, personal responsibility, and so on. And employability was becoming an increasingly core focus in higher education. And what we wanted to do was to create opportunities for students to gain that confidence in managing their own development. So we wanted to make sure that they would succeed academically, but we also wanted them to be able to go out into that global workforce and be able to articulate the strengths that they had beyond that very discipline-specific knowledge. And I recognize that, be talking to the converted here, this will be something that many of you will have gone through in your own institutions. You'll be familiar with this narrative. You'll have created your own opportunities and structures to meet this increasing focus on building employability. But alongside that, what we also wanted to do was to build on this growing awareness within the school of the importance and the value of using a coaching approach in a learning environment. There was this growing awareness of the importance of coaching, but alongside that, within the school, there was also growing expertise, spearheaded in many cases by Rona and Amanda and the work that they were doing there. But we recognized that there was coaching ability, coaching capacity within the school, and we wanted to link up that employability need with this sense of how could we use coaching to support our students. And there was a real recognition that if we could bring in a coaching approach, we could support our students to be much more reflective and much more self-directed in their learning. So we wanted to use coaching as a tool to help students to navigate that trio of personal development, academic development, and professional development, so that it takes place throughout their studies, so that it helps them come into the university to move through those different transitions in the degree program, and then also as we support them out of the university into the workplace. So the first thing that we did was we looked at some of the existing frameworks that existed within the university. We didn't really want to spend time creating new opportunities. We wanted to look at the frameworks that were there that we could essentially hook onto, and we could begin to embed coaching there. So the place that we decided to work from first was the Edinburgh Award Framework. So this is a structured development opportunity that's run by the university's Central Career Service. So by working with an existing framework, there are already structures in place, there was support, there were support to run some of the different sessions that make up these Edinburgh Awards, because it's a framework that the university offers. But the great thing about the Edinburgh Award is that it's very tailorable to different students, to different schools, to different institutions, or different centres within the school that want to run these opportunities. And I'm sure many of you will have similar frameworks within your own institution, so you'll be familiar with the structures that I'm talking about here. The framework is also very aligned to the university's central Skills for Success framework, which is a competency framework for skills development. And again, this is very much with the lens of how do you support students to excel and to thrive whilst they're in the university, but also as you look to that employability piece, how do you help them to understand some of the skills that they have learnt, how do they talk about them, and then how do they put them into place in the workplace? So the award structures are very tailorable. You can take the award structure and you can look at the needs of the different student groups that you're working with, and you can create very bespoke offerings to help students with the different stages of their degree that they are in. And so our intention was exactly this. How do we create these bespoke offerings specifically for students within the business school with a focus on that personal development space, professional development space, and ultimately global employability? So what did we do? Well, we started with a pilot Edinburgh Award, and from that, it was hugely successful. Students took part, feedback was very promising and very positive. And so we evolved into the structure that we now have, which is 3 Edinburgh Awards for students at undergraduate and postgraduate level. And on the next slide, I'll show you a little bit more of the structure of those different awards. But all of the awards use a very structured, reflective practice to help students to identify their strengths, but also to identify the areas that they'd like to develop. And the key tools that we use to support students in that piece around reflection are coaching and mentoring. And so through the awards, the students are really encouraged to build self-awareness, to build their confidence, to understand the way that all these different skills come together, and they complement not only their academic learning, but also their ability to thrive within the higher education space and to take advantage of the opportunities available to them and to be ready for that next step as they move into the space after graduation. The really important thing here is that because they are tailored to our school, tailored to students at different points in their journey, the student is at the heart of that learning journey. So they really own their own journey. They work with their coach, they work with their mentor to identify the priorities for them. It enables them to take full control of their development. And all of the awards foster a really strong coaching mindset. They focus on this piece around self-awareness, around accountability, and also this piece around continuous growth. So what we often see is that students will join us at undergraduate pre-honors level in our first award, and they will stay with us and they will track through different awards and they'll build up those skills cumulatively. So they'll see the way that the skills they learn in their first and second year impact on the skills that they can continue to develop in third and fourth year. There's a real learning journey that takes place here. And it's a really great space for the students to understand how that broad spectrum of experiences, the academic experiences that they have, the skills development, the in-curricular, the extracurricular, how do they all come together under that banner of personal development, professional development, and global employability? So what have we learned? I think for us, the clearest outcome is just the sustained success of these awards. The completion numbers are consistently high, and we are some of the largest and most successful awards within the university. The student demand is also very clear. We get students, as I say, who join us in the first stages of their degree and they stay with us throughout the program. But also the value of coaching-led opportunities comes through very, very much. We hear that in the student feedback. We see that in the sessions. Coaching and mentoring come up time and time again as really valuable opportunities to focus on their own development. What we also have learned, though, is that in order for coaching and mentoring to succeed, it works best when it's embedded within a structured program. If it's a standalone activity, we tend to see that engagement will trickle off, the numbers will not remain quite so high. But if it's embedded within an activity, if it's not an add-on, you'll see students coming back and really embracing that journey and really investing in their own development. We've also learned that relationship is really important. When we have a relationship-based approach, that personalized approach, again, we retain students. They like that tailored approach to their development. They value the opportunities to have one-to-one contact with their coaches. Those relationships that they can build, that individual journey, again, comes through time and time again in the feedback. And those coaching and mentoring conversations help students to take ownership of their own development. Because they have the opportunity to build this tailored space, it also means that they can own the activities within that space. We also see that the communities that the award creates are really important. Not only does it bring students, like-minded students, together during their studies, so it creates opportunities for friendships, for connections. We also find that students, as I say, stay with us through different awards, but then they also come back after graduation. And Rebecca will talk about this a little bit more in the mentoring space. But we see this sense of, how do I give back to this institution, to this school that has helped me so much? And we see students coming back as mentors. We see students coming back in the student development space as trainers, offering their insights into the employability journey and just helping our students as they start to navigate that pathway towards graduation. We're still figuring things out. We haven't got there yet. We're not at that end point. We're always learning. So there's a number of things that we recognize, which is, one, the awards are very successful. So we typically get around half of our cohorts through the award. But that also means that half of our cohorts are still not going through the awards. So there's still students out there who aren't accessing coaching and mentoring, and they're not using that reflective space as they go through their degree. So we're looking at, how do we expand this? How do we create other offerings to enable more students to take part? And one of the things that we've done is bookended coaching within the undergraduate journey. So in first year, our students all take a compulsory course called Psychological Wellbeing in Business. And as part of that, coaching relationships, coaching experiences, coaching conversations are introduced within the curriculum. At the other end of the undergraduate journey, we have a flourishing fourth years program, which uses one-to-one coaching to support students as they go through that piece around working out what is it that they want to do next. How do they address some of the challenges that they're facing in that last year of study, and how do they make sure that they're in the best possible space to go out into the graduate recruitment market. We're also looking at the way that we support students throughout their degree program, particularly in relation to the student support space. So we have a new referral pathway which links student development with advisors working in student support. And we look at students who are identified as failing to thrive. So they're not in need of other interventions. They're not in need of things like counselling, for example, or referrals to the wellbeing service. But we recognise that there are coaching opportunities in here. Students who might need help with things like time management or communication skills, things like that. Small areas that we can coach on that would make a significant difference to a student and their experience. Can we go to the next slide, please, Rebecca? Thank you. So this is the sort of overall structure of our Edinburgh Awards. And really what I wanted to show you here is the way that coaching and mentoring surface in different ways. So the awards are all year-long development opportunities. Coaching and mentoring is embedded through all of them. We have very high sign-up rates, and importantly, we have high retention rates. Once students sign up, we tend to keep them for the duration of the award. And one of the reasons that I think we're able to do that is that the awards are widely recognised across the school as being really excellent vehicles for the students to own their development, to think about what it is that they're trying to do and how they might achieve that. And one of the great successes of the award is the way in which our academic colleagues promote it. And they are vocal supporters of the work that we do and the Edinburgh Awards. And again, we hear from students that academics play a key part in encouraging them to take part in these different opportunities. So our first award is the Edinburgh Award for Professional Development. This is for first and second year undergraduate pre-honours students. And in this space, we use peer-to-peer group coaching. So we work with groups of students, typically students in later years of the Edinburgh Award, who have themselves already completed an Edinburgh Award. They come back in as coaching leaders, and we'll give them training on coaching conversations, and they'll be offered supervision by internal supervisors. In the third and fourth year, the Edinburgh Award for Effective and Responsible Leadership, this uses our alumni mentors to deliver mentoring throughout the programme. And again, well, I won't go into too much detail because Rebecca will talk about this on the next slide, but again, it's really embedded within the programme. So mentoring is a key part of it, building those relationships, again, supporting students with that view to what comes next. And then finally, our Edinburgh Award for Global Employability. This is for students at master's level. Students here receive 2 one-to-one coaching sessions. We're a mix of internal and external coaches in this pool. Coaches also receive 2 supervision sessions, and we get CPD as well. So it's very much about that hybrid model that I talked about earlier. We have externals involved, we have internals involved, but we do bring coaches together to learn from each other, to talk about some of the things that we're discovering in our coaching sessions, and make sure that we have this joined up approach throughout. I'm going to hand over now to Rebecca, who'll talk a little bit more about the alumni mentoring programme.
Thanks, Lucy. I'm delighted to go a little bit further into specifically that alumni mentoring piece, especially as I did see earlier on in the chat, there was quite a few people on the call that have had that focus on mentoring, are now transitioning towards more coaching focus. So our mentoring, we feel, is really deeply connected to our coaching culture. I lead on the Effective and Responsible Leadership Edinburgh Award, and within that is embedded our alumni mentoring programme. So what we set out to do when we first developed what is now our flagship mentoring programme at the business school, our primary goal was to set up support for students that are in that transition point from their academic studies into their professional life, and do that through meaningful relationships with alumni. And what we've learned through doing that over time is that it's become more than just a student development initiative. So it's a big part of our coaching culture, and it's a part of a long-term alumni engagement piece. So at a high level, what the programme does is it pairs third and fourth year undergraduate students with alumni of the business school specifically, and they volunteer their time to be a mentor. So it's 4 one-to-one meetings as part of that mentoring relationship. But what's important for us is how those mentoring relationships are approached. So rather than positioning mentoring as simply advice giving and career answers, we've really tried to foster a coaching skills-led approach through our coaching-centred mentor training and CPD. And that encourages conversations grounded in curiosity, reflection, listening, and self-awareness. So this all underpins those mentoring relationships, and we feel it distinguishes the mentoring programme from traditional advice-based mentoring models. For us, we've been really intentional about continuous improvement, quality assurance, benchmarking, and that's why we've tried really hard to ground this mentoring programme, along with all of our coaching work, in best practice with mentoring and coaching practice. As part of that, we achieved a Scottish Mentoring Network Quality Award last year, and we continue to engage in bodies including the Association for Coaching, Scottish Mentor Network, and EMCC Global. And we do have ambitions of continuing that development and working towards hopefully aspiring for an EMCC accreditation for the programme in future. But a big thing of what we learned is we approached this programme with that student-centred perspective, as we tend to do in this space. But what we've learned is what comes out of it is that impact on alumni as well. So traditionally, alumni have told us that they are gaining as much from the programme as the students do as well. A lot of them are talking about this reciprocal nature of the programme and even reverse mentoring coming out of it. And although that wasn't an intentional goal at the start, it's a great thing that we've learned is coming out of the programme. So mentors are able to reconnect with new perspectives, reconnect with their own journeys and reflect on that, and stay connected with the business school community. And one mentor described it as, you learn as much as you give, which is a really nice, simple way to put it. On the screen there, you'll also see that we've seen a really meaningful cycle emerge from the programme, and that former mentees do come back to us and become mentors themselves. So this creates that self-sustaining cycle of support across different stages, where they're a mentee and a student, they become a graduate, and then once they've got some professional experience, they come back to us to be a mentor and give back that experience and then return as mentors year on year. So we've had over 700 students benefit from mentoring to date through the programme, and this year alone we had 85% of our mentors were returning mentors. So that really speaks to that idea of it being self-sustaining. There's a real sense of belonging to the community here for it. And as we've covered, we're always figuring things out. We're still exploring how to develop further. So one key thing that we're working on for the mentoring programme, but also across many of our offerings around coaching as well, is how do you continue to support and develop, specifically in this case, our mentors through the CPD that we offer. So that needs to work in ways for this global volunteer pool. We do know that there's a strong appetite for continued learning and connection from our mentors, but we're learning how to make those opportunities accessible and possible while being a volunteer with a professional life that's quite busy. And we're seeing that as well for our coaching leaders who are students as well, as Lucy touched on. They also receive training and supervision. So how do we make these opportunities accessible for people that are volunteering their time? So for us, mentoring is more than just that one-off employability initiative. It's a practical way that we embed our coaching culture at the business school, and we develop relationships that are developmental, reciprocal, and sustained over time. So that's a quick summary of this mentoring programme that we're using as that flagship to hopefully roll out mentoring more so across different offerings within the business school as well. But from there, you've heard a lot on case studies from myself, Lucy and Amanda. I'm just going to put up a quick question, and I'm aware we're getting on time. So feel free to pop into the chat box how you're accessing coaching and mentoring, how your students are accessing that offering. It might be something we've covered, it might be something new, and you can see what insights each of you have and are sharing. While you're typing that in the chat box, I'll pass on to my colleague Pauline, who will cover that kind of so what. So we've all got such brilliant, impactful offerings, but what is the impact of it in reality? So I'll pass that on to Pauline. Feel free to put in the chat box as we're discussing that.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. And as you can probably all sense there's quite a lot going on at the school. So and we've already touched on actually through those case studies some of the impact that we've had as a school through our coaching and evolving coaching culture. So we've covered what have we done. So what's worked? And I've divided this up into 4 different sections here. So in terms of students, we're really proud as a school that we provide all of our students the opportunity for coaching and mentoring. It's something that we are very proud of, and also that we advertise as a school as well. The engagement is, as has been touched on, is very good. Last year, almost 800 students across all levels of education at the business school engaged in coaching and mentoring opportunities, which is amazing. So we've touched on as well the personalised approach that we take, and as Lucy touched on it in depth there with regards to her section there, we do have a number of positive student outcomes and benefits from them engaging with coaching. So higher confidence, testimonials tell us about more purposeful communication, stronger team working skills, for example, even things like less stress and anxiety. So across the piece, we see students having a stronger student experience, a better curricular experience, and their employability, growing confidence around areas such as employability, and their overall well-being improving as well. So a number of amazing testimonials that come through. Within the University of Edinburgh more broadly, historically, staff have always had access to coaching through central HR if they requested that, and they could access it that way. But in terms of our internal culture here, we have offered staff the opportunity to train in coaching. So as Lucy touched on, we've got 22 internally trained professional qualified coaches in the school. But we also offer training, as we've touched on, in different ways as well. So a big part of this more recently has been offering core coaching skills to our student advisors. The student advisors are a really important part of what we call the student support model at the University of Edinburgh. So a really important first touch point when it comes to students asking about academic questions, but also seeking pastoral support as well. So those student advisors have been armed with an enhanced toolkit to have better conversations with students as they come in, and they can also then identify students who may be really good recipients for the referral process that Lucy was touching on there too. As part of that, we have academics who are trained as coaches, and so this feeds through, as Amanda was touching on, to the curricular space. So the MBA we have in curricular coaching, and also we see reflected by other academics who are trained in coaching, this coming through improved conversations in things like the dissertation process as well. We have an updated HR policy, which is now reflective of coaching and mentoring within the school, and that's really helped to shape and form activities and upcoming activities such as our leadership and our leader as coach training, which will see new leaders in the school have access to training around coaching and mentoring conversations. Elsewhere internally within school, of course, as we've touched on throughout, quality assurance is absolutely centrally important to us. And there are a whole number of ways in which we do this. I've highlighted a couple here. Continual professional development opportunities for internal coaches, but also coaches from across the university. So we're able to offer that and have, multiple kind of impacts through that. But ultimately at the heart is the sense of continuous improvement through our coaching practice. Accreditation is also incredibly important. Rebecca just touched on there, the Scottish Mentoring Network, but also really importantly, strategically for us as a school, we've had positive reflection in major accreditation processes for the business school. So very recently, for example, we were highlighted as a point of distinction for the school in our reporting of school practice. Again, don't want to go too much into this because Rebecca's covered it, but this is an amazing way that we're able to reconnect with alumni. So, those relationships are so important to maintain. People really want to give back to the school as well. So what a lovely organic way that coaching gives us to kind of maintain those relationships. Again, coming back to that idea of how much relationships and connection are at the heart of all of this. Externally as well, knowledge sharing, partnerships and exchange are another piece in terms of impact here. So of course we've got lovely opportunities like today to come and share with you and hopefully learn from you as well some of what's going on in Coaching and Higher Education Network. We've also had interest from international institutions as well in higher education. So we're now working with an institution in Scandinavia. They're going to pilot coaching and mentoring, and we're going to work with them on doing that, and hopefully doing some knowledge exchange around that as well. Very excitingly, we've also got partnership with Deloitte, a multi-year partnership with Deloitte, where we're now in partnership in a multi-year conference activity, Coaching for Good, which kicks off on Thursday. And that's going to involve also a community of practice. So there we're working cross-sectorally, hopefully to leverage the power of coaching to have a positive impact socially and civically as well. So lots of exciting things to come, but impact that we've already made as well. So just wanted to very briefly touch on a couple of testimonials across our student, staff and employer stakeholders as well. So I'll let you have a read through those. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of time there to read through those. And again, we can talk much more about how we've measured some of the data that we've collected over the years as well in the Q&A as well. But we can see here that employers really value this too. So I'll pass over to Rona, who is now going to take us through some learning and reflections. So Rona, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Pauline. And I'm going to make a judgment call here because, sorry, I was busy typing in response to Richard's question here. Jelena, you can maybe give us a steer here as well. We did say this was a first. We've never done this before. We have got a couple more slides to share. However, I did say at the very beginning that we wanted this webinar to be twofold. We wanted it to be sharing our experiences, but also learning from others so we could have time for a rich quality discussion. So I'm not sure whether you want me to kind of keep going. Let me just have I could almost like do a 30 seconds piece here and then just open up. Would that be a good shout for you?
Absolutely, whatever works for you. We have 20 minutes, so yeah, we should definitely leave 10-15 minutes for questions and discussion. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you, Richard, for your question. We will get to it.
Yes, I'm halfway through, Richard, replying to you, but I'll pick up again at the end. Okay, so let's just close off here then with some of the learnings and reflections. However, that said, we have tried to weave them throughout the presentation, and as you've seen in both of the case studies as well. But just a couple of things here I'll just really give a shout out to. Put here measuring and reporting. That has been so important to us right from the beginning. We've had to negotiate for resources. We've got to be able to demonstrate impact. And if we hadn't been collecting that data, gathering that data, sharing with others, there's no way that we would have the resource or the budget that we've got today. We're already in a cash-strapped, sector that's going through a huge amount of change. So this has been really key for us as we've gone through. Quality has been right at the heart of that. We have tried really all the way through to make sure that what we're doing is delivering quality coaching and mentoring for those who are engaging with it, but also to make sure that we're investing in our own CPD and supervision. Now, I mentioned earlier on in the pipeline that we have AC accreditation, and that's been fabulous for the reasons that we talked earlier. However, what we're still figuring out is how to manage all the systems behind that, because we've got to make sure that you reaccredit every 3 years. You've got to do a certain amount of CPD, supervision. So there's a whole infrastructure there that we're still kind of working through. Piloting, I'm just going to say there's nothing that we have done in this whole journey that we didn't pilot first. We've always started small, clear objectives, reflected, got feedback before we've grown. It's worked for us, but it's even supervision. We started small, piloted, and then started to grow. The other thing, flexible resource. I think you've heard we've got a mix between internal and external. I cannot highlight how good that has been for us, because especially at times just now where things are getting tighter and tighter, we do have flex and resource. And that's just with our coaches, but our coaching leaders, and we've got about 40 of them each year, especially trained third and fourth year students, and our alumni mentor, where we can have anywhere between 80 and 100 each year. They are giving their time, and the flexibility in that resource is incredible. Governance, wow, that's been a really good development for us as well, truly integrating into the very fabric of the school. And we have got so much more work to do there, but we're already reaping the benefits. So making sure that you are fully connected into the fabric of the organisation is without a doubt critical. So I think those are the key learnings. I'd rather kind of like pull out more when people come in with specific questions. And I think on the last slide, that was more just like a looking forward, although Pauline has touched quite a lot on what's kind of coming up, and we've also heard in our case studies. But really, for us internally, it's doing more with the staff. It is that we really are keen that we're doing that leader as coach accredited training with our staff so that we're equipped to manage more effectively, especially in times of change. And even just recently, we started to weave some of the coaching into some of our organisational practices, like annual reviews, not overtly, but just adapting our approach to how people do approach the conversations, the types of conversations that they're having, how we're capturing information. And again, we're also really excited about this. We're a business school, we're a purpose-driven business school, so working more collectively and collaboratively with our local communities. So again, in times of change, we're asking those kind of questions. What role can coaching play in helping people navigate the future? And it's doing so, though, in a more kind of like human, connected, and also sustainable way. So there's so many things we've still got to learn, so many things we've got to explore, but at the heart of this is being connected, and is about deep relationships and being part of organisations like this, like Coaching and HE Network, where we can learn from each other. And Yelena, the last thing I wanted to do was actually do a shout out about the book Coaching and Mentoring in Higher Education that featured in an earlier webinar here. Now, my goodness, what an incredible collection of practitioner research. And if people haven't read it yet, I can't emphasize that enough. I'd like to think that all we've done today is really bring alive another case study, but that resource is phenomenal as well. So again, we're learning from each other. Thank you for the time. Thank you everyone as well that we've co-presented with. It is a first, so you can give us feedback, but hopefully there's enough there now to kind of generate some discussion and questions. So let's see where we are. Amanda, did you still want to facilitate that part? If not, yes.
Yeah, I was just looking at the chat at the moment to see if we can pick some of the questions up that have been coming through. So we've had quite a lot of questions about different forms of accreditation, which I think, Rona, you're in the process of responding. We're AC, Association of Coaching Accredited, but there's quite a few questions about ICF as well, which possibly other colleagues in the virtual room can speak to, because that's not been our direct experience. Rona, anything to add on that one?
Yeah, all I was in the middle of typing to Richard there was, I think the key though is being aligned to a professional body, whether it's AC, ICF, EMCC, you know, there's pros and cons of all, but the richness that you get out of these organisations and through the accreditations, or even just engaging in their support, is incredible. So I think they all offer different things, but the key is being aligned with one of those professional bodies. I hope that helps. And there might be others in the room.
Question from Andy: how does senior management view this? I'm thinking of the slide in quality, strategy and governance. And I think Rona can probably speak to this, but we have, the thing that makes this work for us is that we have support from our executive right through. So actually our Dean, Gavin Jack, that's been mentioned previously, is our champion, our sponsor, who sits on our executive board within the business school. And so it is embedded within our school strategy, which absolutely has given it credibility for everything that we do. Rona, anything to add to that one?
No, do you know what I think has been the testament? We have seen changes in the senior leadership. So we've had one dean who was with us right at the very beginning of the journey. Gavin joined us 2 years later. We've lost one of our kind of key executive sponsors. He's just gone from promotion to a different school. But regardless of that change of that senior leadership, we've still got senior leadership buy-in. And I think because we have been able to share collaboratively the impact that it's had, people can truly see the value. And I think the other learn is this is not just about having one figurehead at a senior level. This is integrated right throughout the school at different levels across professional services, academia, different senior levels. So I think that also helps. And that's something that's progressed over the 12 years. So it's not just one individual, one particular level.
Okay, we've also got another question. Apologies if I missed this. Have you covered staff workloads and resourcing for those staff who coach?
That is a really, really good question. And it's a really interesting one for us. Whoa, so I think for a number of coaches, it's already written into their annual reviews as part of their workload, as is their CPD supervision, and that's always been the case. I think most people see this as it's a win-win situation. It's an investment, but it's not a fluffy add-on because it actually enhances your capability, whether you're a leader or, you know, within a researcher or doing training with their students. It enhances performance. Where it has, however, been a little bit more tricky, and then Pauline, you can maybe talk to a wee bit about this as well, is in the academic workload model. Because there is still some provision there in that community piece. So I would say one of the ways we've tackled it is that sustainability and resource, that we're not relying on just one or two people. It's right across the piece. So some people in the year will have peaks, troughs, so we're able to adapt. We've got a flexible resource and it's internal and external. But there are obviously some challenges. Pauline, did you want to add anything from an academic perspective?
Yeah, so it would sit, I mean, maybe it's comparable at different institutions, but it would sit under our citizenship hours. It doesn't come under, you know, we've not got a particular line in the workload model for coaching, for example. It would sit under citizenship hours, but I think we are kind of evolving to actually more of our academics being exposed to coaching, but through different means than individuals themselves being trained coaches. So, for example, many more of our academics and professional services staff will be engaging in coaches leader workshops. So there's kind of different ways to engage in it. And I think that's a way to kind of have it filter through the organisation without it necessarily being everyone needing to be trained coaches themselves, if that helps as well. But yeah, it would come under citizenship.
Yeah, I'm just monitoring the questions. Can we share the slides? Absolutely. We'll make sure that we do that via Jelena. I think we've probably covered the ones that are here at the moment, but I don't know if there's anybody that wants to come off. Jelena, are we able to come off mute if people have got questions that they'd be quite happy to jump in with at this point?
Absolutely.
And also learnings, Jelena. Yeah. We'd love to hear people's
just things that you think we could learn from. Absolutely.
I'm just going to enable the mic for everyone. So please just raise your hand and share your reflections, your learning, your question with us. We do have another 8 minutes. I have 2 pages of questions and notes, but I will restrain myself in this occasion. While we're waiting for people to ask a question, I just want to say, wow, I can see how challenging it is to share 12 years of work in this hour and a half. So thank you. I can see how much effort has gone into making sure you cover as much as possible, and also be honest about challenges and that you're still figuring certain things out. But it's really impressive work that you've done, even though you're very humble about it. I can see that myself and many colleagues on this call would love to have something like this in their institution. So there's already some kind of a blueprint that some of us can follow. So thank you. Catherine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I no longer work in universities, and I retired a couple of years ago. But I think this is a really good example of things I've written about before: academic practitioner collaboration, and and particularly in relation to business schools, and actually bringing the two together. So I think this is an observation, a really good example. So I suppose leading to a question: if you're working in a university where coaching isn't embedded in a business or management school, or you haven't got senior leadership like Rona, would that make it more tricky, Rona? If you haven't got somebody like yourself and the people, your embedded sponsor on the board, it seems that you've got all bases covered and you're all moving together really powerfully.
Yeah, but we didn't start that way. It's a great question, Catherine. We didn't start that way. And I think that is why we wanted to share the timeline. So as Amanda said right at the very beginning, this started with Amanda observing MBAs. They need to be, that need to become more self-aware, clearer about their aspirations. Then there was the work that we did in the MSc. And that's why, if there was one thing I'd want to take away, it is an absolute evolution. So there are different people across the broader university who are doing incredible work. And then we're becoming more and more networked and learning from each other. So we certainly, as I said, it was 6 years in before we even started to talk about a coaching culture. It was only 2 years ago that we solidified and formalized the governance. So I guess what I would say is absolutely not, that is not required right at the very beginning. And it is just an evolution. And I don't think it ever stops. You're consistently learning. And I mean, I'm excited about what's ahead. And I just see so much still more to learn. And I think that's why we've shied away from doing this type of thing, because we've not got it all figured out. So I would say everyone is on their own journey. Even just a little bit of coaching and mentoring helps. It has to start somewhere because we know the impact that it makes. So I think it's about working with your resources and the capacity that you've got, but making sure you're measuring and demonstrating impact, because that will be the way to leverage more resources and impact. Hope that helps, Catherine. That's a good question. Though.
Thank you.
I think it's you can see in the chat and from my experience as well, that universities often, unfortunately, in attempt to save money, they stop doing coaching and mentoring programs that are usually created as a special kind of targeted program rather than embedded one. So what is interesting here is both commitment not to give up, but also to keep creating self-sustaining models that Rebecca especially mentioned with alumni mentors and coaches. So I think there's definitely learning from those approaches. We're all reading a comment in a chat from Sarah. Positive to hear. We have coaching community, and coaching is interspersed through some programs, including health ones, but there's no strategic oversight of it. Yes, I think that what Rona touched on, measuring impact, writing strategy, and reporting annually can help with ensuring their strategic oversight remains relevant.
I think, Yelena, this is a really nice link, isn't it, to the conference that's going to be taking place on the 25th. Catherine, there's so many speakers there, and I just think hopefully this is a lovely foundation to jump from, because I do think some of those broader topics that we're going to be discussing at the conference on the 25th of June will really help continue the conversation, just some of the provocations that will come throughout.
Yes, thank you, Rona, for mentioning it. Didn't want to fully take over this session with the conference, but we are keen to continue the conversation and use this momentum of what is the future of HE and the current developments that are happening, and also what is coaching, what's the role of coaching and all of that. So I shared the link already in the chat, but on 25th of June, we will have speakers who will be talking about this, including Catherine and Rona, and Gavin as the Dean of Edinburgh Business School, who will actually, in conversation with Rona, talk about why does he support coaching culture and keeps investing in that. So if you're interested, you can see the link in the chat. I'm just conscious there are 2 minutes left. This has been a very rich session. So first, I want to make sure we don't run out of time before I say thank you to every speaker today. Thank you for finding time in your very busy week when you're having a conference yourselves later this week to share this with Coaching in HE Network. It is recorded, so we will be sharing the recording with a wider audience. But I will just allow final comments or questions from anyone here before we all go back to our own day-to-day jobs. Okay, just loads of gratitude in the chat for your presentation and for sharing your learnings with us. Okay, if there's no questions, we will leave it there. Thank you again. Appreciate your time and your expertise today. Thank you for everyone joining and asking questions, and hopefully see you on 25th of June.
And Yelena, thank you from us as well for giving us the opportunity and giving us that nudge to get on and start like putting our story together. Really appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to future webinars too. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Pleasure is mine. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.